Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I don't think Boots Ennis will beat Keith Thurman. Now, I will tell you this. Boots Ennis looked spectacular against Roman Villa. In addition, Boots Ennis didn't look that spectacular against Chukhadzian. He looked less than stellar. Now, you say, well, what's the main contrast between his performance this past weekend and his performance several months ago on the undercard of Tank Davis and Hector Garcia? He had somebody several months ago who was floating like a butterfly. Actually running like he stole something, but he was floating like a butterfly and on occasion would sting like a bee. And he was catching Boots Ennis whenever he decided to let his shots go. But he did feel Boots Ennis' power, and he didn't want no parts of that. As a result, it resulted in Boots Ennis having a less than stellar performance, to where even I said, hey, he passed the eye test, but he didn't pass the test. This past weekend, he had somebody who wasn't trying to float like a butterfly or run like he stole something. He had somebody, man, that was just coming straight ahead. You know, high guard, not much head movement, but just, one of those guys who's going to come through, take what you were able to dish out and try to get his shots off. And Roman Villa. Absolutely wrong game plan. Perfect style matchup for a guy like Boots Ennis. He didn't have to look for the guy. But the difference in the two fights is not just one fighter, Chukhadzian, moved around a whole lot, and another fighter, Roman Villa, coming towards him, was Boots Ennis was the aggressor in the first fight and getting frustrated because he wasn't able to have his way with his opponent. In this fight, Boots Ennis was more on the back foot. He did press forward at times. Boots Ennis was able to do everything he wanted to do against Roman Villa because Villa was there to be hit. Don't get me wrong, Villa did try to get some shots off. It just wasn't enough. And Boots Ennis' defense, his display of defense was impeccable. But when you sit back and you strip the emotion away, you got to say, if a guy like Chukhadzian with that kind of movement could frustrate Boots Ennis, you got to say a guy like Keith Thurman would frustrate him. The difference is Keith isn't going to move, I don't think, as much as Chukhadzian. Now, when you look at Roman Villa, Villa's going to let shots go, which he tried, but he doesn't have the movement. Now, Keith Thurman has the movement, and he'll let his shots go. So if you take a Chukhadzian, you take a Roman Villa, and you're able to bring the two together and coalesce the styles, you got a Keith Thurman. And when you put that together, you got a recipe for disaster for Boots Ennis. Someone who can move and crack. Someone who can float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Someone who's got power. And then most importantly, who's got confidence. Man, Keith Thurman ain't coming in there to lay down. Y'all crazy. And I think when you look at how Boots performed against both Villa and Chukhadzian, and you bring those styles together, you get Keith Thurman. And as a result, Boots Ennis will take a loss. Now, I got to be fair. Sometimes you got to take this information with a grain of salt. Keith Thurman, something said he was 5'9", but everything else I'm seeing saying he's 5'7", 5'7.5". So let's just say he's 5'8", okay? Boots is more like, 5'11", difference in height. Keith Thurman's reach isn't 70 inches. Boots has a 74-inch reach, right? Boots is very talented, but so is Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman can get inside. He can counter. He's fought taller guys. He's fought guys with longer arms. But at the same time, that Keith Thurman was in his prime. This isn't a prime Keith Thurman. But we got to see how Keith Thurman looks when he comes back to fight Ugas. I don't know. I should have pulled it up to see what Ugas' reach is. Probably like 97 inches. Ugas, like the Fantastic Four. You see them long-ass Cuban arms he has? But if Keith Thurman can get in there and do the business with Ugas, then he comes back later this year and fights Boots Ennis. That is a good fight. However, I think Boots Ennis is going to go and do something different. I just don't think he's going to go straight into a fight with Keith Thurman. One, because I don't think Keith Thurman is going to want to turn around that fast. Two, I think Keith Thurman still feels like, you know what, I'm no gatekeeper. And then three, I think Boots Ennis and his team is like, you know what, before we go in here with a guy like Keith Thurman, who's a ex-unified champion, only lost to Pacquiao, which was a questionable loss, let's try to get standing unison here. Another one of these guys who are right on the crest of a championship fight. Let's come in here and let's take him out, if they can get that fight, which I don't think they will. But long story short, Boots and Keith Thurman. Now, when you start looking at work rate and what Boots was able to do with the jab, let me tell you something. That could present problems for Keith Thurman. But if Keith Thurman, depending on his activity, his commitment level, and how he's going to look, if you're throwing a lot of shots at Keith Thurman will counter you. He will time you, he will catch you, and he can hurt you. And for those of you saying, oh, Keith won't catch Boots Ennis, why not? I'm going to say Boots can catch Keith Thurman too. I'm sitting here being real. I'm neutral. I'm fair. But don't sit here and act like if Chukhadzian can touch up Boots Ennis, Roman Villa hit him with a couple shots, but Villa just didn't let his hands go as much. It's because of what was coming at him. But Villa touched him a few times. All I'm saying, when you bring the two styles together, you get a Keith Thurman. And if both of those guys can touch him, Keith Thurman going to touch him even more. Okay? Now, I am paying attention to that stab jab that Boots likes to throw. But he throws that stab jab, Thurman will counter him upstairs. But if he lands that stab jab on the button, Keith Thurman could be in trouble. We got to be real now. But long story short, look, man. Keith Thurman went on record, man. There's an article out there published on Boxing Scene 24 where he said he'll take on the welterweight phenom Jerome Boots Ennis. He said if he's the biggest fight available. And I'm going to tell you right now, after this week's performance, for Keith Thurman, the biggest fight for him outside of Crawford and Spence, which we know they're busy till probably 2024, the biggest fight at 147. Let me see. Let's see, all right? Because I think it is Boots. For Keith Thurman, he's going to have Ugas. But outside of Ugas, the biggest fight for Keith Thurman probably is Boots Ennis. And that's just being very fair. Let me see what I got here. So when we take a look at this, Spence and Crawford are busy. Ennis, Ortiz Jr. is out of here. Standing Eunice is a good fight. Boots, you have Rocha, Crowley, Vanessy, and Villa. Look, and then let's come down here. Let's look at what we got here. Butiev, Ugas, Thurman's going to fight him. Barrios has already fought him. Crowley, he's not as big as Ennis. Conor Benn could be a big money fight if he gets his stuff squared away this week and Thurman decides to go fight him over in the UK. Mean Machine, I think he needs to leave Mean Machine alone. That guy's a problem. Crowley, Barrios, Jamal James, Rashidi Ellis, Blair Cobb, who's the best boxer right now, in my opinion. But yeah, so realistically, when you look at it, the biggest fight outside of Ugas for Keith Thurman is going to be Boots Ennis. And that's just the reality of the situation. And Keith Thurman's going to have to figure out, what does he want to do at this stage in his career? Because, yeah, he's a hustler. You know what I'm saying? But some people feel Keith Thurman just doesn't deserve a massive fight. And I think he does. And I'm going to tell you why I think he does. Because he didn't just go and become inactive for no reason. Injuries, getting married, kids. You got to understand that. He decided to give up a belt, right? Nobody beat him for anything. Now he deserves an opportunity to try to get a shot at a title. But I understand people want to say, hey, he's been inactive. No, you got these other guys coming up. It doesn't matter. Hey, look, the rules are the rules. And we know the secret society does what they want. But Keith Thurman is still a big name. He's the number 3 guy at welterweight. Boots is probably, probably number 4. But there's a couple of guys you could put in at number 4. But Keith Thurman is number 3. But I still think Keith Thurman deserves an opportunity. But at the end of the day, man, if he doesn't get the shot at the titles, then he's going to have to fight Boots Ennis. He's probably going to have to fight him sooner than later. But we're going to see how it goes when he does come back, man. Keith Thurman has his eyes set on, the winner of Crawford and Spence. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Crawford and Spence fight twice, if for some reason somebody chooses to hang around at 147, I bet you Thurman will get that fight before Boots Ennis. I don't care about these sanctioned bodies, what they say. I bet you the WBC will make sure Keith Thurman gets that fight first. I'll put money on that. That Keith Thurman get that opportunity. You just look at how things are going. When the WBC wants something to happen, for the most part, it happens. Okay? But we're going to see, because it all comes down to PBC and fighters, and comes down to, fight purses. It comes down to what the key decision makers behind the scenes want. There's so much stuff that goes on, man. That's why we're saying the fly on the wall can talk. I don't know. Content creators don't know. Nobody. No one knows. Only one knows are those secret society and those key decision makers who don't show their faces. They know what's going on, and that damn fly on the wall. But one person I will tell you, that Spence won't fight. Won't fight Thurman. Spence ain't fighting him. Spence refuses to fight him, man. So for Keith Thurman, really, it's narrowed down to Crawford, who I think would fight him, and then Boots. That's what Thurman is looking at after he comes back and fights Hugas, man. But again, pay-per-view money. Who's the pay-per-view star? I mean, I don't know what kind of money is going to really be there to get a guy like Thurman in the ring with Boots. Thurman wants to get paid. But this whole thing about $8 million, $10 million, I mean, I don't know. Some people feel Thurman, like Broner, although we're not saying they put them in the same category, but look, they're old, they're washed up, they're inactive. Their market value has gone down. I think there's still more life left in Thurman than Broner, but same situation. Those big paydays aren't there anymore. So you got to put the work in. It's like me. I've been out of work for 4 years, man. I retired, didn't go back to work. Now I'm out here like, all right, maybe I'll go back to work. It's not so easy when you've been inactive. You know what I'm saying? No matter what resume you have, degrees you have, experience you have, it doesn't matter. They want to see someone who's been active, and it's the same thing. That can hurt your career. It can hurt your money earning potential. Doesn't mean it's the end of the day. It just means you may have to do some things you probably wouldn't want to do to get yourself back in position where you want to be, and that's the reality of anyone, not just a boxer. All of us, man, who may go through that. But I tell you what, people still remember you and know what your potential is. They just want to sit back now and see if you can still do it. And that's what I think it is with Keith Thurman. Let's sit back and see what he can do, because the younger fans don't know him. You know what I'm saying? These younger fans don't know Keith Thurman. They don't. Some of these younger fans don't even know who the hell Floyd Mayweather is. And he's still out here in exhibitions. But I'm just being real with you, man. He went out there and said, look, it's not concrete, but even Keith Thurman talked about fighting Virgil Ortiz. He's just open to fighting all these guys, man. He's just not a popular fighter, man, anymore. Adrian Broner wasn't. Adrian Broner went on record and talked about kind of how you got treated at PBC when you're not a popular fighter, man. They try to feed you to these young guys, and it is what it is. But we'll see what happens with Keith Thurman, man. He's back in training. He got a fight on record, and that's what it's all about. Some people feel Keith Thurman's still looking for a big payday before he disappears again. Felt that if he was serious about making a proper return, that he would have taken a couple of easy tune-up fights, and then went and did something else. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But I just think with Keith Thurman, I don't think it's desperation. I think Keith Thurman knows that time isn't on his side. I think Keith Thurman will put the work in. And at the end of the day, when you look at it for what it is, Keith Thurman, even when he last fought, he showed the lateral movement, the ability to fire on the dime, and the ability to fight back. If you hurt him, he's going to fight back. And he starts hurting you, he's going to try to get you out of there. I just think with a guy like Boots Ennis, if Boots can't figure out how to deal with the movement, and he can't improve his defense. Don't get me wrong, against Villa it was a little bit easier. But if Boots Ennis is going to stand there, like he said before, he's cool with getting hit, he's going to have some problems. I'm not sure if he's going to have enough to stop a Keith Thurman who comes back and fights Yugas, stays in the gym, and then is ready for a second fight this year, an active Keith Thurman against a guy like Boots Ennis, who still, for some reason, is getting hit with some big shots. But he pushes through it. I just don't think him coming in there and getting hit, allowing Keith Thurman to hit him cleanly, is gonna work out well for him, because everyone Keith Thurman has fought, he's hurt. He's hurt. Even Pacquiao, he was there telling Keith Thurman that, your son hit hard. He hit hard. Very strong hands, strong hands. Yeah, he hit hard. Somehow Pacquiao pushed through it. You saw how Pacquiao looked after that fight? Y'all saw how Pacquiao looked? Pacquiao? He saw it even after he fought Yugas. Y'all saw how Pacquiao was looking? Man was drinking his food to a straw, eating to a straw. So Keith Thurman, man, y'all keep doubting him. Keith Thurman still got what it takes. But I think it's going to really boil down to intelligence, IQ. And like I said, the old dog sometimes has some tricks up their sleeve that these young guys, they just ain't ready for. But that pressure that Boots puts on fighters, that up and down, man, everything he did, it's just amazing. It was amazing to watch him do it. But I'm going to tell you again, I'm not taking anything away from Boots Ennis. He had the right opponent in front of him. I think he passed the test finally. I just think if he doesn't figure out how to deal with a Chukhadzian and his strengths, and deal with the strengths of a guy like Villa, and an opponent who has both of those attributes, he's going to have a problem, because Keith Thurman has the float like a butterfly attribute of Chukhadzian, and you got the sting like a bee attribute of Roman Villa. And if he got somebody who can do both, Boots Ennis is going to be in trouble. He's going to be in trouble. That being said, I guess we just got to wait and see. But I want to make sure you hear this and make sure that I say this emphatically. Boots Ennis has finally passed the test. I'm just not sure if he can defeat Keith Thurman right now. But we got to wait and see. That being said, shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. I'm in the breeze.